Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today on Time Zones and Time Meters. It's Simon and I, Josh. We're here to talk about a fun, hopefully, topic today. A quick disclosure, we will be using a term that, is, I guess, sort of adult humor. The term masturbation will be brought up a few times. So if you've got sensitive ears or this for some reason is off top, something you don't appreciate, then this is not the episode for you. But yeah, so Simon and I were talking quite a while ago actually about some progressive music, and we were talking about virtuosity and great technical guitar playing and detail, and we're sort of I made a few comments about some of the stuff that can be seen as virtuoso work as just essentially mindless musical masturbation. And I think both of us have had quite a laugh about it. And we use that as a term sometimes that gets brought up whenever we're talking about stuff that we've been listening to. So that's what the topic of today is. How are you today, Simon? You feeling okay?
Yeah, I'm slowly waking up. But I have to say, this is a topic that is kind of relevant to at least, well, I've indulged a little bit in this myself, maybe because I have a past as a guitar player in a band, right? And when I was a teenager and I had a metal band, my goal was to be the virtuoso. I was not gonna settle for
So
being
every time he uses the word virtuoso, everybody, I want you to just consider swapping it with the word musical masturbator. Yeah, we'll go there.
exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, uh, but that is a little bit the thing, right? That I treated it almost like a sport at times.
Yeah.
I could just sit hours on end, just picking a scale and with a metronome and just trying to do it faster and faster and faster. But of course, not only the like tremolo picking or whatever. I needed all the techniques and sweeping and tapping and one hand and God knows what. And maybe also it's always fun to incorporate those showy aspects, so to speak, even to the point of the things that you don't really hear with swinging guitar around like Alexi Laiho or Yngwie Malmsteen does.
Yeah.
And doing all those tricks, Jimi Hendrix playing with the teeth or with the tongue or whatever, and switching the hand up and down like who does the Joey DiMaggio of Manowar, maybe. I had to learn all the tricks at that time. So I mean, I have watched all those guitar players that would be considered as music masturbators, and I've maybe appreciated them more then than I do now. That I maybe I'm more of a passive, enjoyer of the arts.
Mm.
I do have, however, think that it serves a purpose, because if you know your technical stuff, then you have a broader palette to work with for whatever you want to do. And sometimes it can even have, usually it puts it's like a dichotomy. We call it that?
Dichotomy.
Yeah, between feeling and technique. And sometimes people go with someone that has a lot of technique. They say, yeah, but it has zero feeling. But I would argue that if you are a virtuoso, you can express your feelings way better. And sometimes you can even, the goal can even be to just be impressed by, or, to just shock someone with, holy crap, that was intricate and fast.
I think it's a good point. I don't want to take take from what you're saying, but just before we say anything else, music is a performance. Like it's for people to watch. So like the idea of you standing up there and playing is generally all about that, right? So there is an element which should be about putting on a show and impressing people and doing something that they might not be able to, or, you know, and of course the better your skill set is, the better you're going to be able to, you know, express yourself. I think where this like term gets brought up and the question gets asked between these, you know, whether or not it's virtuosity or not, is always surrounded by the did you lose your audience because you're just getting too intricate. And I think that's where the term pops up. And so for me, like I'm a huge like music fan, obviously, but if I lose the song completely because some guy's going for a 4-minute, 5-minute guitar solo in the middle of the song and it branches away from the tune, or to me it doesn't have an emotional resonance at all anymore, then that's where, you know, I would put it into that category. And so I definitely hear what you're saying and I get that side of things too, but we've got this like, and sometimes it sort of flirts with the edge of it, doesn't it? It's kind of like right on the edge, and you're like, for some people, just pure taste is going to say, I'm caught up in this, it's amazing, and I've been swept away. And other people are, you know, maybe have the attention span of a gnat, like I do. And
I think it's, you know, I think there's like there's maybe like a gray zone, or like
yeah,
not a sweet spot, but like a sour spot where it is. If you really do it great, if it's amazing, and then you're gonna sweep someone under the rug, you know, or like someone is just gonna be baffled by what you hear and see. Maybe just hear, but seeing is usually fun when it comes to these virtuosos, right? It brings an extra something. But if you're, you know, if you're a mid-tier someone and you're trying to do that, you know, then it's not going to be it. Then it's better to just do something that focuses on emotion. You know, you have to be top tier if you want to impress someone. On the other hand, this is also a little bit what we've been talking about before, also, like how prog at times can be music for musicians. Like, if you are a guitar player, you will be impressed by other things than if you aren't a guitar player. Like, as a guitar player, I will notice things that I don't notice with drummers or with keyboardists, you know, because you know, when I listen to a record, I hear, oh yeah, he's doing a pull-off technique here, you know, he's doing the legato. Oh, and how did he switch from that tone to that tone? I don't think about that when someone is playing the keyboard, because I'm a terrible piano player, right? So, and I do not know how to, you know, what exactly is it doing with the right hand here, and what is it doing with the left hand? Is this difficult? I don't know. There I can have more of an unbiased judgment of it, you know?
yeah, and I think it's a good point. Like I do not even regard myself as a guitarist, regardless of if I own them or not. Like, I just don't even regard myself. I'm that poor. And so for me, I don't really, like, I know how difficult it is just to do like basic shit, let alone something that's sort of the mind-blowing stuff that you listen. But when I listen to music, I think if I'm noticing the technical details, then usually it means that my heart's not in the song. And that's just the way I find myself, like, you know, and that's the best thing about progressive music is quite regularly I'll get swept up in the really great stuff, you know, and you're just like, wow, what a great performance. And after like listening to the song 30 times, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a second, that's really technical, or that's really smart, or like, for me, those things come way, 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 way later. And so, you know, I guess I like that virtuosity to be, you know, sort of weaved in maybe a little bit more subtly. And I think for me, I like the sort of classy as opposed to smack bang in your face, like kind
Yeah.
of, you know,
And
solo.
that I have to say is like maybe I'm matured in that sense. Let's hope so. But
Did you hear
uh,
everyone? He called me immature. That's what he did there.
no. I would exactly. I would say that I was immature and I really wanted it
Like you, Josh.
in my face. Now I am. I am mature now, like you, and I
Oh
prefer it
man, I'm just
subtle.
teasing, dude. Don't worry, it's all good.
I'm not gonna dwell on this. Uh,
No, 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 don't
um,
worry.
but when we talked about making this episode, I I put down a list of names, um, and some that were familiar to you and some not. And so like you have quickly browsed through these
Correct.
names
Yep.
that I thought to because I was curious about your opinion here.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
the first of these names is like the guy that is considered a musical masturbator or like a guitar masturbator, and and that is Mr. The fellow Stockholm um, born
Yeah, from
Yngwie
your
Malmsteen.
country.
Yeah, yeah, or Yngwie Malmsteen, as we would say in Swedish, but he's made an international career changing his spelling. It's Yngwie J. Malmsteen. I believe the J was not even there when he was born. It's just something you have to do when you want to make it in America.
Right.
Just like I believe Dolph Lundgren, like yeah, is it is he maybe his first name maybe Adolf? I don't know Adolf, but like you probably need a. I think he also used to have like this letter in between as an example. Like that was something you had to do in the 80s or so.
Mm.
But yeah, Yngwie J. Malmsteen or just Yngwie. Uh, what
I
I said,
wasn't, to tell you the truth, I wasn't as familiar with this sort of artist. The name definitely rung a bell. I know I've seen something in the past before, especially when I clicked on the link. I watched it on YouTube, and I saw the sort of Black Star Live. I think it is. I think the clip was called. And look, that's a killer performance, you know.
it it is absolutely one of his better ones. I think
Yeah.
that one has emotion. I have to say that that performance is not just janking. I
Yeah.
think that
But based on what I was watching, like I saw a very sort of heartfelt, pretty sort of magical, 10-minute clip. I think it was roughly like 11 minutes or something, and that was pretty cool. And I think, look, he gets technical, he gets sort of carried away on a few of the, sort of things that he does, but he showcases a great skill. I love the soundscape of it too. So it's got this really sort of heartful, sort of pure guitar thing, and I think that in itself is hard for me to see. Um, like in this light. I think when I tend to see people or refer to them myself as like someone who's lost their way is when they take from the band. When you've got these solo artists that are just kick-ass players, I find it less offensive than if I'm watching, I don't know, like watching some form of piece of music, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the song the guitarist goes off on a 4 minute like escapade. I think that's when it loses me, whereas something like this, which is on stage, he steps up, he's got the guitar there and just starts to build and build and build and build. I think that kind of thing's just, that is virtuosity to me.
even though I myself do consider him a little bit of a musical masturbator. Of course, everything is not black and white, and I think this is one of his better songs and maybe better performances as well. I mean, Yngwie was someone who came in the early 80s, and he was the thing. Nobody could play as fast as he did. That was like his shtick. And he's very open with it. He was like, he's famous for saying things like, "How is less more? More is more." Because yeah, and there's, for example, an old like metal aid, like they did the aid.
Yeah, yeah, for raising charity funds and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. Where Dio has this "We're Stars" song, and it's just solo on solo on solo with all these guest guitarists, and there you have the crop of the cream of that time, and then you have Yngwie there, and like nobody plays nearly as fast as Yngwie, and And I think, I mean, I think that but that's how we broke through, and everybody loved it. But then he never really evolved from there, I think, and that's maybe the thing that still to this day, there's not so much depth further than that. He does his neoclassical thing, and it's always going to be these incredibly fast alternate picking within the same scale, basically. And like, if you heard 5 songs, you kind of have heard it all. And so, but yeah, Black Star, amazing tune. He, of course, when he had his breakthrough, he came with the band Alcatraz at that time, which he later quit to go solo. And in there came another guitar player that used to play with Frank Zappa, and that is Steve Vai, and that is the number 2 in this list where I sent you.
Yeah.
And this is the guy I think sometimes get accused of doing musical masturbation, whereas I think he does anything but. I think everything serves the purpose of what he does. What did you think of Steve Vai?
Look, I love the clip, and I think we spoke about it, in our last episode too, in the Halo theme song. Steve Vai is responsible for, I can't remember when he jumped into the franchise and played. He's done a bit of computer game music as well, I think, if I remember correctly. But it's one of my favorite pieces of music, and it's from a bloody computer game, and it's just this rocking guitar thing. So look, I thought it's really interesting, because the first clip you showed me, and then followed by the second one, I was like, yeah, these guys are just great. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And so they captivated me for the entirety of the clips. I hadn't seen that one with Steve Vai either. It was Tender Surrender, and I've sort of earmarked that one for later to check out again. But I thought, what a great performance that was, and again, emotionally connected to the music. I think it helps being able to see it played live as well. I think that was pretty cool. So I think for me, sorry,
one unit with a guitar. It's like it's just an extra limb for him. I saw that clip or that performance of that particular song 25 years ago. My jaw dropped, because I think it's the perfect combination of feeling, and like nobody can execute it like he does. It's like every detail is such thought through. And still now, when I see it 25 years later, my jaw still drops, It just never ceases to amaze me. This has to be my favorite guitar player. And I mean, he can shred, absolutely. He might not be as fast as Yngwie, but his palette is way wider. Yeah, sorry.
No, it's great. I thought, as I said, like, I think we share a pretty similar sentiment here. I'm not as well versed in his stuff as what you are, but maybe in some areas that you're not. But no, I loved the clip, and I thought that was a good example of like good connection and soul. To me, it just speaks of like soul, in the music.
Yeah.
We moved on to, I think it was, where did you go? Polyphia?
Well, I first put in some names of some Dream Theater names there, because Dream Theater is also a band that is accused of doing musical masturbation a lot.
Yeah.
So I put in Petrucci for the guitar part. I put in, of course, the drummers, so either Mike Mangini or Mike Portnoy in there.
Yeah.
We could also do the more genty stuff first if you want to.
No. I'm happy to go down the Dream Theater line. I thought, look, my issue with Dream Theater is I do think that like they lose their way. Like, I just, then they do lose me quite a bit. I like so many elements of what they do, and I think it's good, but I think they are the prime candidate in music that I've listened to that just I go, I like this, I'm on track, it's good, and then just boom. I've got like it's a guitar solo that I lose myself in. It's a keyboard solo that I'm lost as well. And I find myself just going, I just wish you'd stick to the key motif of the song nearly. Sometimes it feels jarring and out of place. And I know you're a Dream Theater guy. And I say this with utmost respect as well to all the fans. But this is the
Nothing personal.
no,
And
it's
you know,
not.
no, it's just music in a sense, even though music is not something that is just. But I think that you know, it's just about that it connects on different wavelengths, and sometimes you're not on the same. And
Mm,
I think that's perfectly fine. Uh, as a little, between parentheses here, I'm sometimes happy that we have uh, a small channel, because people can get so emotional if you are criticizing your favorite artist, you know.
yeah.
I'm happy that that we can speak our minds, because we're not gonna have someone flooding with could you say that about I was a little bit worried when I you know was casually talking about how Ozzy was being doubting his skills,
Mm.
because then I'm thinking like, oh damn, people are going to get upset about this because everybody loves Ozzy nowadays. But this is the good thing, that we don't have
Yeah.
10,000 subscribers, because
Look, and the thing is, I always want, if for as long as we do this, I always want it to be sort of just us candidly talking about, whatever
yeah,
is on our minds. And I wanted to be honest as opposed to just like, bullshit all the time. And so I
yeah.
think that's kind of the key. And the thing is as well, I think we're both thick
The
enough
other thing is
skin.
also, these are big names, right? So
Mm.
it's also nice, because if I say that Yngwie Malmsteen is a musical masturbator, he's not gonna be sleepless over that. I don't want to be, you know, i- i- if you
That
are
bloody
the
Simon's album reviews, that's it. I'm going to
yeah,
town. Yeah.
but that is of course the thing. If you're a big music journalist, then you have to watch your tongue a little bit, because you're gonna have bad blood between the artist. We don't have to worry about that stuff. We can just, as friends, speak our minds, and maybe we have to look out with a smaller artist that sometimes contact us to to listen
Oh,
to their
look,
music.
but there's also the other thing is as well is I don't believe that I like, don't believe in being disrespectful for disrespect's sake neither, and you'll probably find that we're not very disrespectful at all. As a matter of fact, I think both of us have said like more often than not, if we're not into a band, we're just not into the band. Like it's not no comment on them. It's more so just on like our personal taste, right? At any given time, and that will probably change as well. So
Yeah, and
I
I
think,
tend to criticize my favorites the most.
hmm.
So yeah, but yeah. That said, um, sometimes things can be perceived as perceived wrongly, as criticism, even though it might not even be criticism.
To talk a little bit about Dream Theater though, like for me, I tried Metropolis 2. Is that what it's called? Please, you're the
Yeah,
big one, yeah.
Metropolis Part Two.
Yeah, so the second, like the album, right? The Metropolis
Yeah,
album, right? And
seems
because it was,
from memory, Metropolis Part Two. Yeah,
yeah, and so the reason I bring it up, that's where I was originally told to like, well, I looked them up and I said which one's their most well celebrated album, and that one popped up from so many people saying it's just brilliant, right? And I just recently listened to that track, specifically the track within the album, because of the progress thing. So they're on my mind a little bit. And anyway, regardless. That was the album I first listened to Dream Theater, and it didn't click with me. And so
you
it
listen to
wasn't, yeah,
Metropolis
no. So I started with
because
the
that's
album. Pardon?
okay.
Yeah, I'm
But
not
but
talking
but
about the track. I'm talking about the album. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So then after that, like a year later, I went back and did um, Images and Words or whatever it's called. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I did that, and that got me. So it's interesting, right? In that I listen to like Pull Me Under as like an opening track or whatever it is, and just go, oh shit, I love this. That was really cool. And then even you know, as the album went on, I went through it and just sort of thought to myself, like, I enjoy this. This has got some great stuff in it. But when it got to the Metropolis track in this album, it lost me.
Yeah. Okay.
It lost me. And so it's interesting that then the next album, right, which is, I think it was the next album in their discography, you're the big fan, but the one that I'd seen previously, the Metropolis Part 2 one, right? And yeah,
It's later, but yeah.
yeah. So when I got to that and went back to it again, I'm like, yeah, this doesn't do it for me. And it's meant to be such a highly rated on many people's Dream Theater lists, it's number one. And I just think when Dream Theater at their best for me is when they have these like hooky melodies. When
Well,
that's just what I find. And so it's I know they're great. Like I get Petrucci as like as a rock god in many like respects, but I
being
just
tough skilled.
yeah, and that's the
Uh,
thing. Just the notes. It's too many notes for me.
I have two things here. One thing is what it was for me, at least, when I started to thoroughly enjoy Dream Theater, was that um, they usually do these unpredictable things, right? That they have a breakdown or a musical breakdown, and then it's this weird. You're like, okay, how am I going to nod to this? How am I going to feel this? Because you cannot hum along to that, at least not the first time, maybe not even the second time.
Like the
But it is a
hundredth
little bit
time.
when you heard it a bunch of times and you know it, then it's like, oh damn, yeah, it's so fun to hum along to this because it's so difficult. But after a while, it will etch into your brain. And
Mm.
like maybe the perfect example of this is their technical uh, highlights of Dance of Eternity that is
Mm.
on that album, the Metropolis Part 2, where they have, I think it's 132 time signature changes, and I even heard like Portnoy explaining this on how he has the first time he goes into this melody, they do it dun 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 3 times, and then the second time they do it 1 time, and then or 2 times, and then the third time is just 1 time. So it's like you think you know it from the first time, but the second time they get to that melody, they just do it 2 times. So they always throw you, uh, they always fuck with you in the sense that you think you know it, but you don't.
Yeah.
They and and um, and I can totally see how that is not the thing for a lot of people, but it's and this is maybe where it really becomes music for musicians, because if you're used to playing it, then it becomes fun. That's the thing. It's fun. It's not, the emotion doesn't per se have to be my heart is breaking here, or but it's joyful. It's playful. It's playful is what it is. um and that's a different kind of emotion than what people usually are referring to when they're talking about emotions. But
Mm.
I don't think that it's, and it is a little bit technical for technicality's sake, but I think that they make it groove, and but I can totally see where it does not connect with people. Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
um but that is a little bit how why I was so hooked on Dream Theater previously, because like I thought it was so fun to just every time you heard the song, you got deeper into it. You like it got better every time you listened to it, and it just didn't seem to end. You know,
Mm. Yeah, I
the
love
hundredth
that.
time
I
than the
love
first
that.
time, and the time was even better.
Yeah, I really like that story in terms of the way that you're seeing it. And I think there's lots of music that's a bit like that for me too, but it's definitely like that's an element of listening to music that you really, really enjoy. Whereas for me, it's, you know, how much work do I need to put into this before I enjoy it does factor into my choices of music sometimes.
And maybe you have to, like, I don't know, do it with hook up Guitar Hero or Rock something, that you have to try and play this, and you get some guidance of it, perhaps,
Look,
maybe that's
I was just going to say, like, when you brought up that, I remember playing Guitar Hero. I think it was 2, maybe, or maybe Guitar Hero 3.
great soundtrack, or
But was it Joe Satriani has a track on it, and that ended up being one of my favorite things to play along to.
do you know what track?
Oh, I can't remember its name.
Because this is, of course, also a guy that gets accused of musical masturbation, and it's
Yeah.
also like the teacher of Steve Vai, right? He learned
Mm,
to shred from, or he taught Steve Vai how to shred. I understand,
yeah.
but and a lot of people think that he has way more, that he's a better guitar player than Steve Vai. I cannot see that at all. You know, for some reason, Satriani does not sweep me away like Steve Vai, and also, I also try to play some Satriani stuff. I don't think it's as technical either, but yeah, I do enjoy his stuff. I just don't nearly hold him as high as Steve Vai. But that's me being a Steve Vai fanboy. Although, back on the topic of Dream Theater, you of course have the drummers as well. Like, of course, Petrucci, yeah, sure. Like on an individual level here, of course, Petrucci and Jordan Rudess and everybody, they get accused of being these um, musical masturbators. Then with the way they play solos. But I think that especially Petrucci also can play the heartfelt stuff. He might not do it as often as someone as Steve Vai. Uh, I think, however, that Mangini, the drummer that filled in for Portnoy for 13 years, is a little bit of a musical masturbator because he was also a drum professor. So he's like, even though Portnoy is a technical drummer, he is not at all as technical as Mike Mangini. And it's like he plays with such precision that it almost doesn't sound human to me. Just like how if you alter drums in post too much, that it gets too much on the beat, it's starting to sound a little bit robotical.
Mm.
You don't have to alter his drumming in post because he's so on time. Whereas Portnoy is known for exaggeratingly drag and rush.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also when I listen to the uh, Metropolis Part Two, I'm just swept away with the drums there. I think, well, first of all, his drum sound. No one has better metal drums sound than Mike Portnoy. And then when you have the ending track of that album where they just go on a riff and he's just soloing, and and he makes it sound difficult, even though it's not at all as difficult as what Mike Mangini does, but it sounds difficult. It sounds impressive, and it's a little bit like um, Eddie Van Halen playing Eruption, doing the tapping. It's like, oh wow, tapping! It goes so fast. It sounds so difficult, but tapping is not really that hard. But it's something that sounds hard, and so for someone who's not a drummer, Portnoy, whew,
Yeah.
he's the man. And I mean, that's what you want, right? If you want it to sound impressive, it doesn't actually have to be difficult to play, but if it sounds like that, you know
Look, I just have to just jump in. So here's the thing. I'm yet to experience it with drums. So for me, I know that there's people out there that go off on these like drum solos and all sorts of stuff. But generally speaking, that because they control the groove so much, I don't mind it. I don't lose it as much when some guy's going off, boom, 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 whatever, and changing and chopping things up. I really appreciate that. And so I would, when we talk about this topic, I think I don't know of too many people where I go, I lost it completely with drums. Keyboards,
Yep.
yes.
Mm.
Guitar, yes, 100% yes, but drumming, not so much. And so watching somebody who's like, Mike Portnoy on, like, I mean, God, I subscribe to Drumeo on YouTube, right? And I think I've watched every Drumeo episode, but I haven't done every guitar equivalent of that show. Like,
Right,
I'm
right.
not that interested in it. And it's interesting because
I mean, it's
that's
also so fun to watch, right? It's also so physical, you know. So it's
I don't know. But that is one thing that I have learnt in my recent musical wanderings, right? Is that I love drumming. Like,
yeah,
and I think a band to me can be sort of made and broken on its drummer, and
yeah.
it's interesting, but that's just the way I kind of see it, and so and or at least it's what I'm observing in my current taste, so I've
Valid.
I found Mike Mangini and Mike Portnoy as not being an issue at all in the Dream Theater stuff. But the keyboardist, what's his name? The bald guy with the beard.
Jordan Rudess.
Yeah, he loses me too. Like he
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
really loses me. And it's just this massive notes. It's like I'm
yeah.
sure it's amazing. Like he's just going off like a touch typist. And this.
That's what people have with Yngwie Malmsteen. That it's just 1,000 notes sprayed in there. You know, like you could use quarter notes for making this build up, but he has to use 32
Yeah.
notes. Yeah,
So I think
but,
that's
but,
interesting.
but but total with drumming, because that is like the criticism that I've heard with Mike Portnoy back in the day in like the early 2000s. It's
Hmm.
like he has to do a fill every single bar, But I'm like, yeah, so what? That makes it energetic, and as long as you put variation into these fills, that it's not the same fill every time. Bring me the fills, I love that.
It's probably worth me going and checking out. You'll have to put a link or two up for me to check out like some of the stuff from that era where he's doing that so I
Have
can see it.
There's was one track you need to listen to, and if you're not sold there, then you're not sold, and that is Finally Free, the ending track of Metropolis Part Two, and just enjoy the drums, man.
Let me have a
Um,
look. Let me have a look. I've got my last FM thing open so I can tell you. Oh God, I hated how they abbreviate it. What scene would that be? Scene nine, three,
Final.
six, seven, five,
How
eight.
many
The
tracks are
highest number is
there?
nine. So
Yeah,
I'm
is
guessing
that not?
it says here, finally free. I've only listened to it once. So
Yeah,
I must have been lost on this album. It looks like I played it
probably
about,
gave up before it. Yeah.
yeah, before I got there. It looks like I've tried to play through this 6 times and I've got through every song except Finally Free 3 times. So it's a very obviously early days. But look, I'll keep it on a rotation, a loose rotation, and come back to it for sure. And I'll deliberately check that track out.
We thought this was going to be a short episode.
We talk. We like to talk, don't we? We get enthusiastic.
Yeah. So the last chapter here is I put down two more genty bands or artists.
Yep.
Like being the guitar player I am, I put down the names of the guitar players. So we had Tosin Abasi from Animals as Leaders, and also put down Tim Henson from Polyphia.
Hmm.
Um, I'm curious to what your thoughts there are. Are you familiar with these bands from previous?
I Polyphia is there's a guy I know it's his favorite band, And I've always said, oh, I'll check it out. Like I'll get there, I will. But one of his other favorite bands is Neo Blivascaris, who are quite heavy, right? And
Yeah.
so I think because of that, I've kind of put him on the back burner and thought I've just put it for some reason in that category. However,
It's also very technical.
yeah, which it is, and I recognize that, and so I thought that that's kind of his jam, you know. But when I saw this clip that you showed me, I thought, oh, it's actually a bit different. I really quite liked it. I quite liked it, and I thought it was good. I thought everything that was in the. So we watched OD, is that right?
Sorry?
OD was the track that you sent me.
Uh,
Let me have a quick look. Yeah, Polyphia's OD was the music video. I thought that was it was pretty. Look, that was great. And I thought it was moody. I like genty sounds, so I'm pretty good with that. I thought again technical. I thought there was some cool stuff there. Look, it's a bit, you know, there's a little bit of I don't know what the word is, which some gent sort of stuff can sort of be like. But in saying that, like I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. It reminded me of Plini. Do you know Plini?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to see Plini play live at a sort of an outdoor, I think it was a monument festival or something. And the thing about Pliny, I was not particularly like my brother loved Pliny, and I thought, oh, this will be cool to watch as well. And when I watched it, I just went, oh, it's really genty, and it does border on. He's a great example of someone who probably does get a little bit too caught up in the lots of note stuff.
Mm.
But the thing is that it's cool. Like I like the sound of it. It's great, but I don't go back to that sort of music. That's the problem. Is if somebody goes off on a tangent where they're sort of soloing amongst like really heavy shit as well, I'll just go, oh, it's really cool. But if it doesn't have something that hooks me, something that grabs me, something that is uniquely different than just playing a shit ton of notes, then I do start to get a bit lost. And to me, this Polyphia's OD does not do that. It stays true to the tune. I thought it was a good example of actually like some good music. What's your thoughts on the clip? You haven't spoken to me about it at all.
Well, I would say it was maybe a little over 10 years ago where this kind of bands and artists really started to emerge, such
Mm,
as uh, Pliny absolutely belongs to them. I got some, well, a lot of stuff also was like solo guitar things, not only bands, but mostly actually guitar players. Uh, and at first, especially with animals as leaders, I was very, very impressed. I thought, wow, they really took this complexity to a new level. Not only because of the eight strings guitars, which I really hadn't heard too much music played on eight string guitars before, and of course Tosin, he's such a cool dude, right? And I get the impression that he's really he wants to be a perfectionist on all levels. It's like um, he's a buff dude. He cares about his how he dresses, yeah, and it's like no one can beat him skill wise or technicality wise. Um, he drives cool cars. It's like he has to excel in everything is a little bit what I get the impression of. So I get the impression of this guy treats it like a sport. And but I was really impressed with it when it came. I really thought, wow, this is the new thing within Prague. Like this is he's pushing borders here. And I thought that Polyphia also had some of that aspect where they it was new. They did something different, but it kind of wore off kind of quickly for me.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and that is and I think a little bit what gets missed is indeed the emotional aspects because they don't have the classic let's soar on a note here. Let's there's not so much wailing of the guitar as there's there's no DNA from David Gilmour or Steve Rothery or even Steve Vai, I would say. Um, of that, those really fuck
Yeah.
faces,
Look, it's a perfect moment actually to mention. I think, um, well, two things actually. Number one, a friend of mine shares your sentiment 100% when it comes to gent music and the technicality of it as well. He talks about the fact that he thought it was really cool at first, and he thought it seemed like, it was a great movement that the prog scene was sort of starting to head down. But he says that they just seem to be copycats all the time. There's nothing unique or different. And I just gave that a fair bit of thought because I quite like some of the sounds as well. But for me, there is an element of um, that they don't, yeah, like there's less like expressionism within what they're doing. And I think you're right. And so to bring that up, like the longevity of whether or not gent is a genre, regardless of if you think it is or not, but that kind of, progressive metal is gonna be, we're gonna find out like in 10 years time, is this genre or gonna be completely obsolete, or where is it gonna go? Is it turning into the, what it looks like today? Like, is it actually progressing? Is probably a topic for another, like another episode that we could do. But David Gilmour, who you were talking about from Pink Floyd, right? Yeah, that's his name.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
he I was recommended to listen to Pink Floyd more often because my favorite guitarist is the guitarist from Riverside, right? Or the one who died. So, Piotr Grudziński or whatever his name is, or was. He was my favorite guitarist, like hands down. And if you're familiar with Riverside's discography and musical style, like he's not somebody who solos out, but he definitely has them. And those are these long, low, sweeping notes, the heart pulling moments. And the reason I think it's a good segue is because he obviously is so heavily influenced by David Gilmour's guitar playing. And so my friend's like, you've got to listen to this Pink Floyd shit because like if you love that, you're gonna love this. And I'm still yet to fully explore all of Pink Floyd because they seem a little bit hit and miss for me. But I'll get there. I'll get there. Don't worry, Simon. The classics I will eventually get through. But the musical intensity that a guitar can hold when it's soloing by itself is like unparalleled as far as I'm concerned in the musical world. Like it just, some people just have this talent with them to be able to just send you on this emotional roller coaster of ups and downs. And it's like you can hear the heartbreak, you can hear the excitement. It's such a diverse instrument, right? And so when we're talking about this virtuosity stuff, this is the difference for me. One of them holds my heart in the air, reverberating as they're soloing out, and then the other one I get bored of because it's just filled with a shit ton of notes and my heart's not picking up on it. And so I think that's the interesting thing about this.
But this where I think that someone as Steve Vai can combine these two.
Yeah,
He has all the chops from uh, someone as Petrucci, but he also has all the emotion of someone like David Gilmour, and and he connects the two, and he just paints with the guitar whatever he likes to do, and
mm,
and that is the epitome for me. Like that is what I love in a singular musician. And I mean, that said, it's not like I go around listening to his solo stuff solely. I appreciate it. Emphasis on the other instrumentations as well, but it is indeed interesting. Now we talked about mostly guitar, but to a certain point drums. We have not at all mentioned bass.
mm,
Like, to me, a bass player can also, just like a drummer, I have no problems. Like, I have a hard time seeing a bass player actually going overplaying, because that's what it's about, right?
yeah,
Overplaying.
that's right.
Like, play more than you serve the purpose of the song. And like, bass players, please cram notes in there. I don't mind it at all. And cram your percussion, your slapping and popping, and do it, because I think you really have to go extremely overboard in order for me at least, to say you're overplaying. Whereas indeed a key man or a guitar man absolutely can do that. We could talk about singers, because that's, like, there you have maybe not as common in the rock world, or I mean, there is of course, but I mean, the typical example of overplaying or as a singer would be these R&B singers, right? Like, is Mariah Carey overdoing it?
Especially if she goes off on those
Whitney
little
Houston,
like squeals and stuff as well.
Yeah, or just like you have to wail, doing ad libs all the time.
Yeah.
Is that overdoing it, or are you actually, because that's exactly the same as soloing on a guitar. When Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, doing the what is it, the Prince of Arabia, what the heck is it called? There can be miracles when you believe.
Idea.
When you believe. Well, I mean, then they're just trying to, over doing ad libs, one more than the other, and it's just like a guitar duel, and I thoroughly enjoy that, but some people also think that, well, this is overplaying. This is they're doing it just to show off.
Yeah.
I think you have some examples of that in. I have a favorite thing with Symphony X in the second track of the Odyssey, where he just goes, just doing this R&B soul wailing. I think it's super fun when singers do that. I can see how it's not always fitting, and you have to do it with some, taste. It has to be tasty. You cannot do it. It's not always. It's not always the right moment to do it.
Yeah.
You have to choose your moment. You also have to know when to shut up. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually a characteristic of great singers, in my opinion. When you have like long sustained notes that have no vibrato at all. I think it's a vibrato where they've got the wavering voice pattern or whatever it is. Like, where they, the really great singers that just hold a note beautifully, and then if they want to, they can add that stuff. Whereas so much pop stuff, especially like 15 years ago, was just filled with these people who were using their vocals to just trill and warble and like, oh, all the time, right? And so I think that's when you get a great example of someone who is, just doing it for the sake of doing it because they think that sounds good, when it doesn't serve the music very much as well.
I have a list of 100 R&B singers that does this as well, that I do not appreciate.
Yeah. But then again, one of my favorite artists of all time is, we talk about him a lot, but from Leprous, Einar, Solberg.
Yeah, that's a good contender. I considered him as well for this topic.
Yeah, because that guy goes off with his stuff, and you just kind of go like, okay, like some people can't stand it, and I appreciate that too, because he definitely does too. And so I think he sort of flirts with the edge of it for me at times, but I don't know. I think it's I don't quite think that he gets there. I think he sits on the other side of it. But it's a great point. It's a really good point. And I think I probably have a little bit more latitude for vocalists than I do keyboardists and guitarists. And just like you said, bassists, I now that I think about it, I can't think of someone who overplays as a bass player. Like, whenever I hear someone just slapping in the back, just bow, 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 you just go, that's rocketed to me. And so, yeah, exactly. And anytime when I feel the need to be able to do that as well, like exactly that, there's something about like with the rhythm and percussion and, that side of things where I think it's so much like I don't see overplaying happening very much, you know. It also probably jumps into the other person that I was going to bring up before was Tom Morello, right? You know, when he's playing like Bulls on Parade, or he's like you know, slapping out some of those amazing riffs. The guy's like a freaking genius, and he plays with so much soul and so much like understanding of, to me anyway, of like what great music sounds like. But then he goes and starts to do shit that no one else does. He gets caught up on these like crazy solos with a guitar which people, you know, arguably don't think sounds like a guitar at all. He's squeaking and he's squawking and it sounds like he's a DJ on a disc, you know, like, you know, you just go, what the fuck are you doing? Like, bloody hell.
Do you enjoy it or do not enjoy it?
Well, that's the thing, is I absolutely love it when he's not soloing.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, yeah.
So,
Because
so
especially I think the later years, it's become a little bit popular to hate on him because of like, you know, there's been a meme where he's having like a you know, guitar instruction video or something, and then he just, you know, is working with a wire or
yeah,
with a what do you call it when you plug it in, the you
yeah,
know.
the amp chord or whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And just going like how it makes contact, the static or non-static, static, non-static,
Yeah.
and it doing it rhythmically, and it's like, well, this is a guitar player, you know, not even touching the strings. But I mean, I personally, I love it. I think, I mean, it's a very innovative guitar player,
Oh,
not a
undeniably.
virtuoso in the classical sense, but I think, you know, he does indeed things that no one else is really doing, and I for one think he does it uh, tastingly, but I know that a lot of people do not agree with me here, and
Yeah,
maybe
see, and that's the thing. Like, look at his Audio Slave
I'm very
catalog.
forgiving. I'm very forgiving though.
But look at, like, I was just going to say, look at Audio Slave's like stuff. Every single one of those songs, like, it's very corporate rock. I get it. It's formulaic. It's kind of like, you know,
I
verse,
love
verse,
audio
blah blah
slave.
blah. But then every single one has to have a Tom Morello solo in it. And the reason I bring it up is because it means that you've got, like, oh, how many albums they do? Like 3 or 4 albums or something. And over those, like, you get what, 15 Tom Morello solos. And I would say that like seven of them, six, seven of them, I can probably just hum along with because I freaking love them. But then
Yeah.
I also think
Whack,
there's another
whack,
like,
whack, whack.
yeah, exactly. And I know exactly where you are, right? And so whether or not it's
Yeah,
be yourself, you know, or whatever it
yeah,
is,
that's the one.
that so
So iconic.
but I can jump to that straight away. And the thing is that freaking song is one of the lamest lyric, like, you know, like delivered things. And but I love the song and I freaking love that solo because it's just different, right? And so I think it's just, you know, this is what art is. It's kind of hit and miss. It's I'm having a crack. This resonates with me at this time, you know, and I think Tom Morello borders on that side of sort of the playful but very unique, you know, kind of, as you said, um, technically it's guitar, but he's not playing the strings kind of stuff. He's
Yeah,
switching, you know. So
yeah.
so I don't know. Like I think that's uh, you know, I have a lot of time for these all of these people, whether or not it's virtuosity or musical masturbation. Like doesn't really matter to me too much. It's just something that's worth considering. I think a fun topic to explore and something to be able to just I don't
I'm
know.
curious to if people are watching this video. I'm very curious to what are, you know, what you guys consider uh, a musical masturbator and a true virtuoso.
Yeah, and also just probably that like where does your part of the scale come in as well? So like for example, if is it like because we said it's all grey, you know, and for you you might have a higher tolerance in some areas, but I'd love to hear from other people as well and go, where do you guys draw the line? Like which solo
Wow.
do you go, yeah, you lost me here, or which, you know, or do you think we're full of it, you know? And I guess that I'd be very interested to hear other people's opinions on it too. I think it's a fascinating sort of topic, especially in the prog world, like especially in the prog world. Yeah. Was there anything else that we'd brought up or noted that we wanted to talk about, Simon, or should we leave it there, do you think?
I think we're good there. I think we sitting on the border of overstaying our welcome.
That's right. There's only so much of this you can talk about before this in itself is maybe verbal masturbation about musical masturbation.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, well, dude, thank you so much for joining me today. I had a blast. I had a ball as always. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody in the background for joining us. Please subscribe to the channel if you've watched and you sat through all of it. You can find Simon at Simon's Album Reviews on Instagram. You can find me as the Prog Wanderer on Instagram as well. We're always
I'll share this playlist of these virtuosos or virgins. I'll share the playlist in the link.
That'd be great, and obviously we'd love to hear from you guys. So please, please comment, subscribe, and like. Anyway, we'll see you later. Thanks so much for joining us. Peace out, everyone. Bye. Rock on.
Nice.